Hello and welcome to day 16 of the daily sketch that I am following. I'm the daily sketch challenge that I have taken up. And today we are going to illustrate in watercolor pencils, of course, since I have taken up the daily sketch challenge with watercolor pencils. Today we're going to illustrate pedha. Pedha is an Indian sweet. For those who aren't Indians, you probably will not quite make out what this is made of, but pedha in India can be made of a lot of different type of ingredients. So we have pedhas of different types. Now this particular one may be what we call I'm not sure, some sort of a milk pedha, and I'm not going to go into the details because I'm not sure myself, but it's a very it's a sweet made largely in one color. We're going to have to work with a lot of shading today to add any detail to our average looking pedhas. So let's give this a shot. Here's my paper. If you must know, this is an A6 sheet, so it's a very quick, easy size to use for an illustration, especially if you're doing a daily challenge. It's actually quite nice size. I'll start with the topmost pedha, which is not a perfect round, but somewhat. And then there are the ones below. So let me try and be as uniform in my shape as I can. Then there is one that comes out from here, goes over the side. So this must probably go out a little more. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Next, we'll fix a few things along the way, but until then, I'm looking for the ones that are most exposed, because these will also be most visible. Right? So there is a cashew nut here, right? Almost all of them have cashew nuts on them, which is very nice because we get to break that color. There's one over here. The shape of the cashew is so lovely. Okay, now we go on to the pedhas here. This is now sitting underneath, right? But the cashew nut is visible on the surface. Now there is something behind, but that we are going to just color in. Next is a shape that sits over here. And that cashew nut is slightly hidden, or rather, let's say it's gone under this particular pedha. Okay, the last one can fit in here. Maybe a little higher. Yes, this is better with a little bit of that thing here. I'm going to erase a few marks because obviously I've made some mistakes. And then there's a plate on which it is sitting. So it is sitting on a plate where the edge comes here, touching the side, right? And we are trying to make what looks like a circular plate. Yeah. I'm trying to see where the plate, how high the plate goes. The plate goes all the way here. So let's make this a little, that's the outermost layer. Let's take off few of the excess lines. Yeah, just trying to get myself. So this is not happening quite right. Make some adjustments. I need to draw this a little lighter, or rather what I can do is I can go over it with my kneadable eraser. Hello. Yeah. And then this is a very odd sort of plate. I can't see all of it, but it seems to have some sort of a double layer below, right? And a thicker bottom over here. Now all I can see is this, so I'm going to have to make an educated guess about how it turns beyond. I'm assuming somewhat like this. Something like this. Okay, done. So this is the basic drawing. They aren't olives, sorry. They aren't olives, they are an Indian sweet called pedha. If you haven't eaten it, it's really, really sweet, high in sugar. It's a dairy product, so it contains a lot of milk solids, and yeah, and a flavor, of course, because they always add saffron, and you might see it in the picture too, a few bits of saffron sitting on it. So we'll see if we can get that in. Okay, pedha is yellow ochre in color, so this gamboge shade and yellow ochre shade are going to be pretty important. Then I will go in for a nice dark brown, which I can mix with maybe, today I'm going to try and use a gray because I think my black is getting too dark. I'll keep the black, but I will probably be careful how much of black I use. We'll keep the gray handy. And the plate is white, so that should be fine. Okay, let's see how this goes. I'm not going to pull out any more of these colors, just keep these in place. What else do I need? Yeah, that should do. Let's see, if we need something more we can always come back. This is my trusty palette with a whole lot of remnant pencil pencil watercolor pencil shavings that have been dissolved, so I keep this handy. If I need to add something to it, I will. Okay, if you are inquiring, this is pedha. It is not an English word. I will write this down and I'll erase it later, but it is pedha. Now, because most of it is yellow ochreish in color, I'm going to just liberally apply that yellow ochre as is. And it's quite dark, so when I say liberal, I am liberal with the application of my pencil color. Whenever I use pencil colors, the first wash or the first layer is always direct pencil to paper, which I will wet, of course, but it's always pencil to paper first before I add details by scraping in a little bit. So that's the dark shade. India has a lot of sweets. I mean, we're really quite versatile with our sweets, and many sweets that are dairy based. Of course, we do have non-dairy ones too, but I think we have learned how to manipulate dairy quite well to make really tasty stuff. If you're wondering why I haven't finished the other part of this circular shape, it's because I'm doing the darkest portions first. I'm going to lighten my touch the moment I go to the right, but first let me do the darkest areas. Dark is on the left. For all the pedhas, the darker shade is on the left. Now this is obviously a very light pedha here, but we can add some darkness here. Okay, now adding the light, gentler touch. See, so you're going to get some color when I wet this, but it is not going to be very dark. It's automatically going to be light. It will save me some shading later on, although I feel I may have to add shading in a second layer. After all these days of serious painting, this is quite a respite that we don't have too many colors. A lot of colors recently. Now for the gap in between, I'm going to color it in with the same yellow ochre, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another color, and in this case it will have to probably be the brown. So I'm just going to put in the brown here in the gap, right over here, and gently just mark out where the gap is seen. See, a little bit here, a wee bit here, just to separate one from the other, one of these from the other. Then we have a few more places, but I'm going to just stop right there. Now for the gray, because I have a gray, I'm going to put in some gray at the base here, here. So quite a bit of the inner part of this plate, even though it's a white plate, is dark. So let's put that gray in as a nice shadow. I'm less worried because this is gray and not black, so I'm just putting in some color. Then I have this portion here. And somewhere in between, shading of gray. Again, shade up a little gray here too. Okay, with that I think we are almost through with the first layer. Now for some water. Now what have I done with these top cashew nuts? I'm keeping them white for now. We'll add some color later, right? So water now, and a relatively large brush. Keep this away. Keep it here. Get some water in here. As always, we start, maybe not such a big one. We'll start with a light, from the light to the dark. So right to left. Apply a little bit of water, activate the paint. Drag the light color onto the darker color. There you go. Now I'm looking at this and it's looking very yellow to me. Quite a bit, quite yellow instead of brown. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of the brown, which is actually this color, which is this color, and add it in like wet on wet action. Little bit of brown, a little bit of this red here, just to, okay, let's just put that in over here, few dots here, and I'm starting to feel like now the brown's too dark, so clean the brush and just spread that in. Clean the brush again and drag that in here. See that? Now it's become more brown. Now it's just me being a little finicky, but I think a little bit of orange wouldn't hurt. So I'm gonna pull out the orange pencil in my set. This is orange. I wouldn't ideally go in dark with orange, so I'm just going to pull it out over here. Oops. What I do with scraping is I only take out a little bit of the pigment. You see this? A little bit of the pigment goes a long way. So now if I clean my brush with my paint, you need to just swirl around a little bit so that the paint dissolves. The pigment, the particles that you have just now shaved off will dissolve, right? There. So this is now dissolved, and I can just apply it here gently. Yeah, that is definitely bringing in a nice shape to it. Instead of cleaning my brush, I'll just go along the entire circle with that orange color because it's going to get lighter. And now this is looking definitely like a better shape. Okay, off to tackle the next one. And I think maybe this one. Yeah, clean the brush a bit. Start with the water. Okay, bring in a little bit of that orange, a little bit of brown, more of orange. Right? Yes. Now if you want to add a shine, pedha doesn't really have a shine, but if you do want to add a shine, you could just lift a bit, clean your brush, and just a little bit of lifting will give you that shine. Now I've not done that for the earlier one, but again let me just try a little bit of lifting. See, it just leaves that little bit of a shine. Okay, I don't think there's much more to the shading of the laddus. Oh, sorry, the pedhas. I'm going to just scrape a little bit more of orange. We need some more orange. In India, pedhas are given out on most festive occasions, and of course, they are the kind of sweet you would usually associate with celebration, with some sort of a celebratory sweet. So, if you have you want to generally announce some good news, some sort of, you know, a new purchase, you want to celebrate marks, in examinations, examination results, among friends and family. This is the sweet most people will end up giving out. So, a little bit of brown. Oops, that's a lot of brown. And we need a little bit of orange. So let's. So pedha is a very common sweet out here. Like I said, you can make this out of coconut, out of gram flour, out of milk, out of so many things, and they're all pedha. They're just different types of pedha. Now this particular one, if you look at the reference picture, is also dark over here. So this portion seems to have the shadow of the previous pedha sitting on top of it. So we'll need to do that, and then just spread the color around gently. There isn't much of a shading in this pedha. The shading is all mostly here. Most of the shading is here where it is touching another piece, and this portion is getting darker because it's really in that light shadow region, right? So and while we're at it, this is probably a good time for me to put in the little bit of darkness here. This bit here, see that darkness, it kind of blends with the, so you should not see the where the pedha ends and the dark space begins. See what I mean? Okay, now if I do need to see a highlight in this one, it's a little bit over here. So clean off my brush, just pick up a wee bit away. Okay, that's really bright. So I'm going to just lighten it, soften it. Oops. Okay. There's a small shading here. Next one. From light to dark. Oops. I'm trying to look at the reference. I think I put too much of water. Let's just move this around a little bit. Drag away the paint from one side, whichever is the lighter side. Drag it away so that it puddles. If it does puddle, it puddles on this side. Okay, a little bit here too. Same process, a little bit of orange and a wee bit of brown. Just a wee bit here. And we'll just go in with this later. Let's put this color in. And a light patch on this side. So let's pick up a little bit. Now there's a little bit of yellow in here, which is dark because it's not entirely yellow, it's just a bit of yellow to indicate a pedha, but we will darken this with a little bit of brown, and it's one that's hiding. On to the next one. The reason I'm going pedha by pedha is because I want to retain the shape. I want this shape to be retained. So the shadows have to work properly. Now here, even though this is on the lighter side, there's just too much of shadow here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of that orange over here and here. Put in a little bit of the brown as well over here and here and underneath, right? In fact, underneath here we're going to get darker than this, but we'll do that later. So there is a little bit of shadow falling on the inner part here, followed by I think we just shade it in. See, shade it in, lighten it, and that's it. I'm not getting the orange color coming through, so I'm going to put in more orange. Yeah. Okay. Shaping up. Let's do the one in front here. So these are lighter. No shadows falling on them. It's just the color of the pedha itself. This one and this one. So I've got a pencil mark over there that's irritating. But let's get in some orange over here. And a little bit here. But not too much. Now we don't need brown in this case because the orange should be adequate to brighten our pedha. Yeah, the orange should be enough. Meanwhile, let me just activate more of that orange. Next, light to dark. Let's bring in a little bit of the orange. You can blend colors before putting it onto the paper. You can blend it here in the palette, or you can just do it this way where we are blending it on paper. Whichever way, it needs to be done very carefully. Okay. I've got the shape. See? Left with one more pedha. Orange. And we'll darken that later. On to the grays. I really need to clean up this brush. So I'm going to wet the gray portion here. See? Bring that subtle gray out. Okay, so the gray is really light. That's good. That's really good. Yeah, I would not have got this effect with the black. So that's good that the gray is so light. I can get a nice dull color. See, even where I apply the gray dark, it's so light. Now for the last 15 days I've been using 16 days now I've been using only my Faber-Castell watercolor pencils, and they're working quite well. I don't have a complaint, but I do have another set by Brewster. So what I was thinking is I could use the Brewster set now onwards going forward, just to get a few days of Brewster as well, so I can understand which one is what I mean. I can try and understand whether I like, if I have a preference. Okay, going on to a smaller brush, and this is my size 0, very very tiny size. I'm going to take a little bit of orange, and very very light, super light orange, and really lightening it up. See, it's really light, just like a hint of orange, and apply that to the cashew nut that's on top. Now why orange? Because really the stark white is wrong. Something about cashew nuts are not stark white, so I can't retain the stark white. So I have to break that, and for that I think a reddish pinkish hue would be better. So let me put in that light orange. See, now it's not as dark as before. I can drop in a little bit more of the orangish color. In fact, I'll have to go in with a little bit of gray, because just orange will not give me the shade. So a wee bit of gray, but gray derived from black. See, if I add it here just a little bit and drop it in at a few places, you will see the darkness coming in, like over here, this side, wee bit, this side, wet on wet, just dropping in a little bit on one side, right? Now for a little contrast. For contrast, I'm going to take this color here, which is a very very dark brown, super dark. See, among my browns this is probably the darkest I have. So I'm going to take this color with this nice thin brush, and I'm going to accentuate the gaps in between. So there is a very visible darkness here in this space, right? And the same thing, if you just draw a line here, the shape has actually changed a bit, so I'm going to correct it. This is a nice place to correct the shape, right? So you can just bring in the shape this way. Same way you can make sure the shape is defined, and somewhere in here now here this is what I see. Over here there's some darkness underlying here, and into the space here. Very little over here, far too little to make a big deal. On this side we definitely have a good, very evident shape. Here too. Here. And over here, a little bit over here. Yeah. Now I'll lighten my wash off that extra paint, very dark version. Just add a little water to it and let's just blend it here. See?
It's a really amazing discovery, really, and it really shows that there's still a lot out there.
Someone's watching. I'm gonna put in a few subtle shadows. I want to say subtle, but sometimes it gets dark and then it's not subtle anymore. So I'm saying subtle because I think I want it'll be subtle, but let's see. Is that subtle? So this is the gray I'm darkening that I thought was dark when I applied, but wasn't really as dark as I hoped. So I'm just putting that gray in again. See over here. And this is actually not gray from the gray pencil, but gray from the black pencil, which I had avoided earlier. So I'm getting a grayish brown and I don't want that. So I'm going to just go to another part of my very dirty palette and try and get the blackish gray that I want. Okay, so apply a little bit of that here, a little bit here. You know, when you want to make your gray a little nicer, you can put a little bit of ultramarine blue into it. That makes the gray a lot better. Now the shading here. There you go. The entire plate is shaded in. Okay, done. I'll put a little bit of the same gray out here too. Somewhere here. Yeah, the tray is gone a little off. The plate. I should have probably drawn only what I saw instead of playing around with it. But now is not a time for what ifs. There you go. Finally, I'm going to put in the little bit of color that I need to add, that dark color, which may make a difference. I don't know. I'll have to try it to know. That may make a difference over here. So every cashew nut has a little bit of a shadow of its own. Just a wee bit. It's so subtle that you probably can ignore it, but when you put it in there, it really makes a difference. That cashew really, that nut really stands out as having some shape. Okay, and last but not the least, a little bit of saffron, but I don't have too much of orange, I have more red. So just a gentle touch of reddish color. Now where do I put it? Over here. There is one piece here. And one little thread of it here. That's it. Nothing more. Where's my pen? Missing? No, right here. I've got some color doing some splashing of paint that happened, which I cannot erase, but doesn't matter. We leave that there and we label this day 16 of 31. Halfway through. Tomorrow onwards, I will pull out my other set of pencil colors, watercolor pencil colors, and then we'll see how that goes. Thanks for joining today. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.